the interwebs to warm themselves up. Looks like we've got about 9 people here, 19 people here joining us. And I see the little light coming on my screen saying we're live. So hopefully that means you can hear me, you can maybe see me, you can see my screen. So my name is Barry, and I'm the manager of student accessibility services here at the University of Guelph. And I'm really glad that there's so many of you who are keen to hear a little bit more about accessibility and what that means for academics. Just so you know what to expect, I've got like a couple slides here, which is in part to make sure that I don't go off track and forget to tell you something important, but also so that you can visually see things as well as hear me describe them. And maybe that'll just sort of help with absorbing the information I'm trying to tell you. You can ask questions in the chat area. My colleagues Malcolm and Patty are here in the background hanging out, and they're going to help answer questions, and they may interrupt from time to time to sort of ask a question on your behalf. I'm happy to answer questions. My guess is my speaking part might take about 10 minutes or so, maybe a bit more. I tend to be talkative sometimes. And then there's time to just answer questions of, whatever's on your mind. So in this photograph here on the welcome slide, there's a photograph, there's an image here of the portico, which is located on Johnson Green, and that was the original entrance to Johnson Hall, the previous Johnson Hall, which was one of the first academic buildings here on campus. Historic landmark on campus. Okay, so here I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the questions that we've been hearing a lot from students lately. Of course, course selection began last week, and so we're hearing lots of questions about reduced course load. So first, yes, a reduced course load is absolutely possible. You don't have to ask anybody for permission, generally speaking. You can just choose the courses that you want to take. Many students do take a reduced course load. I don't know that I ever did a full 5 courses in a semester when I did my undergrad, so that is a common thing. Students are encouraged to consider a reduced course load, especially if you're registered with us with Student Accessibility Services. It just sort of creates a little bit more space so that you have capacity to learn and to adjust and to adapt to this new style of learning. So many students we find, especially in their first semester, find that is a really helpful thing to do. I just said that. And there's no time set aside, no sort of set time limit when you have to finish your degree. So it takes you as long as it takes you. If you take 4 credits a semester instead of 5 credits a semester and you're doing an honors degree, so what they call a 4-year degree, many people, they just add on 2 semesters and they've completed it that way. There are often courses there's always courses offered in the summertime. And so I can't guarantee necessarily all the courses that you would want to take or you need for your major or your area specialty will be offered in the summertime, but there are courses that offer that way too, and so there are other ways to catch up if that's what you need. I guess the one thing that I'm mindful of is there are some academic programs where you need to maintain full-time status and some scholarships and things where you need full-time status. If you're concerned about that, talk to us. We have lots of experience helping people navigate those things. And yeah, there's almost always something that can be done when a reduced course load is needed for accessibility reasons. So full-time tuition applies to students who are taking 2.0 credits. So you probably have noticed most courses at UofG are weighted 0.5 credits. So if you take 5 courses, it's 2.5 credits. If you take 4 courses, it's usually 2.0. So full-time, if you're taking at least 2.0, you're paying that full-time tuition, and it's a flat rate. So whether you take 4 courses or 5 courses, you're paying the same amount. However, for SAS students, because you might need to take a reduced course load for disability-related reasons, if you took 2.0 credits every semester, it means that over the course of your whole degree, you would potentially end up paying more tuition. So to try and create better equity, there are kind of two different ways that we do things. I won't get into all the details, but essentially we can adjust your tuition so that you're paying for 2.0 credits when you're taking 2.0 courses, rather than paying that flat rate for full-time fees. So it means that you end up, when you graduate, you're paying sort of exactly the same amount as any other student. And then, of course, course loads of less than 2.0 credits, they're already charged on a per course basis. So if you're doing 3 courses or 1.5 credits, you're going to get charged exactly for that amount. So that flat fee only applies when you're at that full-time status with 2.0 credits. As I said, discuss this with your SAS advisor, and I'll be talking in a moment about when you will find out more about your advisor. So part-time versus full-time, UofG, so the institution considers you to be full-time when you're doing 2.0 credits or more per semester. This is one of the sneaky catches. So OSAP has a different definition of full-time and part-time. So full-time is 1.5 credits for OSAP purposes, but I'm going to say that as a general rule. Again, for disability-related reasons, there sometimes is a bit of variation there. So don't get too worried about the details. Just know that OSAP has a different definition from the University of Guelph. That's the key part. And then some other funding sources have their own definitions. So if you're accessing some sort of a scholarship, bursary, RESP, band council funding, some of those things, sometimes they have their own definitions, and we can help you with that as well. Again, we've helped students navigate those things previously. Okay, so connecting with your SAS advisor. When you register with SAS, you will have a point person that is your advisor for your whole degree at the University of Guelph. The first step is to submit the NSIF, that's our acronym for the new student intake form, and give us some supporting documentation. If you're sitting here today, maybe you've already done that. Quite a number of people have already sent us that information. If you recognize my name, that's because I'm one of the people who has been doing some of the follow-up as we receive that stuff. Please be sure to read your UofG email throughout the summer. We're sending updates sort of probably about once every 2 weeks or so. And in addition, like those are the general updates that we send to all SAS students. But then there's also sometimes, individual correspondence with a particular student, like, hey, we have a question, or, there seems to be something missing that we need, or, here's the information about how to connect with your SAS advisor. All that stuff will be sent to your UofG email address. In probably sort of, for most students, it'll be early to mid-August. You'll get an email telling you how to book an appointment with your SAS advisor. Having said that, some students will get that earlier, and we've actually, for a small handful of students, we've actually already started to tell them who their advisor is. It sort of depends on lots of things. So like we sort of start with people where we know that there's the longest amount of lead time to set up accommodations. So for example, if you're going to use sign language interpreters, we need to find the sign language interpreters and make sure that they're available for when you have classes, and that takes a fair bit of time. So that takes a longer lead time. For other things, we have sort of systems and processes, and so we tend to do more of that in August. When you get an email from us, it will tell you who your advisor is, and it will say, please call our front desk to book an appointment. Some of those appointments will be before the Labor Day long weekend. Some of them will be after. So if you're not in Canada, Labor Day is that first weekend in September. And so, they will go sort of into early, maybe even into mid-September. And fall's busy. So just when you receive that information about booking an appointment, don't wait, call and book an appointment right away. If you have a parent who's used to helping you, if you could please make sure that you call either with them, or you're the one who's calling and they're sort of staying beside you and supporting you. What we find is when parents call and book the intake appointment for the student, we have more no-shows, that there's more likely to be a disconnect, and the appointment turns out at a time when you're busy with something else or you forget or something like that. So really helpful if you can be the one who calls to help book that appointment. What to expect from the first meeting with your SAS advisor? It'll probably be, I mean, many of these appointments will be done virtually. When we first started in the pandemic, we thought like virtual is going to be terrible. It's not going to be very good. And we found out it was actually the opposite. For most students, people like that it's flexible. You can kind of do it from anywhere. We find that we actually get better information in a lot of cases. Having said that, you're not required to do it virtually. So we do have staff on site in our building. And so if what you really need is an in-person appointment, please let us know. Make sure you let us know at the time that you make the booking, because we'll want to make sure that we're booking on a day when your advisor is actually working on campus. Some people will be working remotely in the fall. That meeting will include a review of your courses. So for most people, it's not even very helpful yet because we don't know. People are still sorting out their courses. We'll do a bit of a review of what are the appropriate accommodations given your situation. We'll talk about deadlines and expectations and just sort of help you understand how we work. What is SAS all about? What do we do? University is a bigger place than what most people are used to from their high school experience. And so we just want you to know, like, here's how we work and how we can help you. And then, we'll also make suggestions about Start Accessible, which is a program that we offer in August. The bulk of the events, our activities are at the end of August. There is a little bit that is on campus. There's some stuff that'll be virtual as well. And so we'll sort of say like, hey, you might really benefit by going to such and such a session. It seems like it would really apply to your situation. Okay, so here's the overview of Start Accessible. So the virtual program is August 23rd to August 31st. There is a sort of sessions about SAS supports and what we do, as well as sort of campus resources as well. There's a live Q&A session. So we do regular live opportunities for you to ask questions and engage. And there will be recordings made available either sort of within 24 to 48 hours. The on-campus part is September 1st and September 2nd. It will include a resource fair so you can learn about some of the resources that are on campus. There's a welcome barbecue, there's tours, so you actually get to know sort of the physical environment a little bit. You can see where our offices are. So, if you do need to meet with us in person, you know where to go to get that help. You'll meet your advisor, so it's not just sort of a name or a voice on the other end of the line, but it's a real person. And there'll be information about things like exam accommodations and how to get your extra time if that's something that you use. We'll even give you a chance to see the SAS exam center. And if you're living in residence, you would be able to move in early in order to participate in this program. All right, so look at that. I think that was probably about 14 minutes. So I said a little over 10, and I guess that's about right. I see there's still about 25 people hanging out, and my guess is Malcolm and Patty in the background have been furiously trying to keep up with questions or reviewing things. Malcolm, any questions at this point?
Yeah, thank you everyone who's submitting questions. For those of you who don't know, if you click on the Q&A tab, you can ask any questions, even if it has nothing to do with kind of the context from that presentation, but just general SAS questions. Barry, there are a couple questions about a bit more clarification on reduced course load and part-time versus full-time. Maybe elaborate a little bit on, the difference between can you go part-time in something versus OVC versus like a history degree. And yes, when taking a reduced course load, looking at making sure the courses that you are taking are ones that are, count towards a prerequisite, like maybe being a bit proactive and choosing which courses you may not take in the semester.
Yes. Okay, so let me start with that one, and if I forget part of the question here, remind me. So in terms of choosing, so if you're taking a reduced course load and you're trying to decide which ones do I prioritize as the ones I need to do this semester, there's kind of two things that you want to consider. The first one is, what are the courses that are prerequisites that you want to take other courses that are going to build on them, right? So if you need to take one course in the fall and the next course builds on it is only offered in the winter semester, you want to make sure that you take those courses in the right time, because if you skip it in the fall and it's not offered till next fall, you're waiting a whole year to take that course. So sometimes those prerequisites are important. The other part, though, is you want to make sure that you're taking a couple of things that are really interesting to you. Like, don't choose the courses that seem the least interesting to just get them all out of the way at the beginning. Maybe, if there's a course that doesn't seem that interesting, do one of those too. But also make sure you include something that seems really interesting, because that's what'll help to keep you motivated, and you will learn more when you're feeling motivated. So you want to choose some stuff that seems really interesting. You want to choose some stuff that you're required to do. One of the resources that you would want to look at that will help you to sort of sort that out is the registration guide for new students. And if it's not already in the chat area, maybe Patty or Malcolm can paste it in there for you. Even if you just Google uofg.ca and then registration guide, for me, it's the first thing that comes up when I do that. The thing that's nice about the registration guide is it sort of takes like lots of different sources of information and puts it all in one place, and it's specifically for new students. Once you're done, the first time you do course selection, usually after that, you're going to refer back to this thing called the undergraduate calendar, which is a much bigger document, and there's a lot more information. So the registration guide's kind of designed to like boil it down and make it a little bit easier to navigate. So then in terms of sort of choosing a reduced course load in different programs, sort of say a history degree versus Doctor of Veterinary Medicine program. So in the Bachelor of Arts program, which is usually where history is found, you have a lot of flexibility. Bachelor of Arts is a very, very flexible program, and so you could do one course a semester if that's what fits for your situation. For the DVM program, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, that program is much more structured because students sort of travel in groups through the various courses. There's a lot of like group work, and there's like lots of clinical things where you just have to sort of move through the program together in a group. And so it's harder to just it's harder to just sort of say like I'm going to drop one course and not do one course. They don't usually allow that. There is a provision, though, in the academic calendar that says DVM students can go part-time if needed, but you have to apply for it, you have to ask for it, and you need to talk to somebody, and they have to sort of help you figure out how that's going to work and explain the parameters to you. So if there is anyone in the DVM program in this session, you're going to want to reach out to Joanne Hewson, and Joanne is the person who sort of helps students navigate what's required, and she's a great resource. So you're looking for the OVC Dean's office, and Joanne is her name. Other programs, so there are a couple of science programs. I'm trying to think of which ones require full-time. Some of the ones, landscape architecture, engineering, biomedical science, I think. So some of those programs have these requirements that you have to be full-time. And I would say when you get assigned to what I would say is probably the best thing to do is choose a regular full-time course load for now. And then you can think about dropping a course, as long as you drop a course by the end of the first full week of classes in September, you're fine. Like, you're not going to incur extra costs. And then that kind of gives you some time to decide which ones do you want to keep, which one or ones. And then when you meet with your advisor, we can sort of walk you through what the implications are. Sometimes we know off the top of our head. Sometimes if it's a program with more complex sort of requirements, we might need to involve the person from that department. But we can help you figure out who that person is, and we can sort of work with you to sort the answers out for that. The same is true with co-op. So co-op does require you to have full-time status according to University of Guelph definition. We can help you sort of navigate that if you need a reduced course load for disability-related reasons, but would want to sort of coordinate that with the co-op office. So I'd say choose the full course load for those programs if that's what's required, and then you can decide to drop a course, down the road, and you want to make that decision by the end of the first full week of classes. What other questions?
No questions are good. Most of them were around which courses to take, like in a reduced course load. So you answered that. That's good.
Sounds good. So just while people are thinking about questions, I am going to mention one that a couple of people have written to me in the last day or two to ask about, maybe the last week. So if you are receiving OSAP, there's a thing called the bursary for students with disabilities. It is designed to help with disability-related costs that intersect with academic costs. So it has to be both disability and academic together. And you have to be receiving OSAP to qualify for it. And so some people know about it, some people don't. The key thing right now is to make sure that you've applied for OSAP, and there's a form called the Disability Verification Form. It's not our form, it's not a University of Guelph form, it's a Government of Ontario form, and they need you to fill that out. There's sort of like, one of the things they're looking for there is that you have what they call a permanent disability, something that's going to affect you for the rest of your life, or what they call persistent and prolonged disability, which is something that's going to last for at least a year. So if you do the OSAP application thing, you do the disability verification form, we can help you with the bursary application side of things, but not until September. This is what people keep asking me about is, can I apply for the bursary now? We actually don't have the forms yet for September, and even if we did, there's no one who can process those applications yet. The government hasn't opened the processing part of it yet. So the way that program works is it falls under OSAP. To make it easier for students, OSAP contracts with the University of Guelph so that we have staff on site who can help to answer some of your questions. But it's not our process, it's a government process. So yeah, you have to sort of sit tight and wait for the fall to do those applications.
Barry,
we are going to have people available to answer questions and help with that process though in September.
Barry, can you give a quick overview of the difference between in-person and virtual accommodations, like for exams and tests?
Yes. Sorry, I sort of did a bit of a breathe in because I'm like, oh, so much has happened in the last couple of years around that. So generally speaking, for most students, if a course is an on-campus course, you need to be prepared to be on campus. If the course is remote, you need to be prepared to learn remotely. We are expecting the library would be open, and so if it's a remote course, but you just need a quiet place to study, the library, for example, would be open unless there's something really dramatic changes with the pandemic. You'd be able to go and use the library or other quiet places on campus to study. What is the hard question to answer is sometimes we have people who say, because of my disability, I can't come to campus. I really want to take this course, but it's only offered on campus. Can I take it remotely? And there's not a simple answer to that. Most students, often that's not possible. And for lots of reasons, sometimes that's because there is a component of the course that can only be done in person. And so you have to be able to come to campus to do that piece of it. Sometimes that is because there are other solutions or other ways that we can accommodate you to sort of make the class accessible. But it's not an absolute. There are, really extenuating circumstances. So we always look at those requests on a case-by-case basis. When thinking about exams. If you're writing an exam online, we have set up a process to provide extra time. So if you have extra time as an accommodation, the extra time can be provided online as well. That's pretty standard thing. I think we've worked out most of the kinks in how to do that. There are some things that we have to do a bit of troubleshooting with. So if you use a program called Kurzweil, which is assistive technology, it sort of helps with reading. Kurzweil doesn't like some of the online proctoring software that exists out there. And so sometimes we're having to sort of reach out to the prof to find out what's the plan for this exam? How does the exam work? And then we can figure out, so what do we do to make sure that, the software, the accessibility software you use works with the exam. So that's part of what we will explain as we're sort of walking you through some of the procedures. But the simple takeaway message is if you need extra time online, that is possible. If you're using assistive tech or something else that falls outside of the extra time, then we may need to do a bit of troubleshooting, and your advisor can talk you through that. just as I'm thinking about that, one of the other things that people ask about is note taking. So we do provide a note-taking service. So if you have a disability that makes it really difficult to take notes for yourself, maybe that's because, you know, you don't have the dexterity to be able to do that. Might be because, you know, the process of sort of switching between listening and writing or typing is means it's hard to keep up at the same time. There is a volunteer note-taking service available. So we mostly rely on volunteers in the class to take notes and share their notes. And we have a portal that helps manage that. We have a small team of student staff who help coordinate that. So there's always people available to troubleshoot if you have a problem with note taking, if it's not meeting your needs. Let us know and we can work on that with you to make it better. Note-taking is really intended for courses with a live lecture component, whether it's me, if I was lecturing, like I'm sort of how I'm speaking to you right now, or if we're sitting in a class together and somebody's standing at the front of the classroom and lecturing. If you're doing a distance education course, usually accessibility is addressed through other means. So there's like transcripts or other ways that they've addressed it. So it sort of makes note-taking a bit more redundant in those situations. Same thing if the prof is pre-recording the lecture and then sort of making the lecture available each week. Usually there's transcripts or other things available that sort of supplement that kind of make the note-taking redundant. Many of the profs who've, like, if they're big classes and they're classes that happen every year, many profs have started sort of including that kind of information in the description of the course, so either in the course outline or on course link. But yet, you know, if you're not sure when it comes to note taking, you can always reach out to the note taking office and we can sort of help clarify and figure those things out for you. Look at this, we thought we were talking about academics and we've covered a little bit of everything. Other questions that you're wondering about?
No others at the moment. Just one that we're answering right now, but we'll give everyone a couple more minutes if they have any more questions.
Sure. Maybe, again, I'm trying to think of what people might be wondering about. What have people been emailing about recently? So some people have been sending in documentation, and every once in a while someone will say like, hey, I'm just waiting for an update on, like, did you get my documentation? So for students who are currently taking courses, because there are students in courses this summer, we're trying to respond within, you know, a couple of days, or 3 to 5 days is what we say. For new students who are starting in September, our response time, like, sometimes it's response, you know, same day or next business day. But, you know, when it's really busy, it might be up to 10 business days for us to respond. I would say realistically, most of the time people are hearing back in sort of more like 7 days, 5 to 7 days is probably about typical right now. The volume has leveled off a bit. It was really intense a couple of weeks ago, but it's getting a bit better now. And I'm allowing for silence. So one of my brothers studied radio and television arts at another university. And in radio, they always say, like, dead air. Like, if there's silence, then, you know, everyone sort of screams, dead air, dead air. You're not allowed to have dead air. It's a bad thing. But sometimes silence is okay. So sorry if the silence freaked you out there, but happy to answer questions. If you haven't been to the UofG campus previously, there are campus tours available. Again, just search uofguelph.ca, and then just if you search campus tours, they happen frequently. Mostly run by students. So you actually hear from a student about their experience on campus, and they will show you like the main academic buildings. There are some sample, you can't see every residence building, but you can see sort of a sample of some residence buildings. Many of the places where student services are made available. It's a good way to sort of get a feel for the campus. There is construction in a couple places, so you will be navigating around construction. If you have an accessibility need when it comes to sort of getting around campus for doing a tour, just let them know. We talk all the time with the folks in admission services who run the tours, and they know what to do for lots of things, and if they don't, then they reach out to us and we help them with that. So everything from wheelchairs and scooters to sign language. We've got a bit of experience with it.
Barry, I'm going to jump in for a quick second. There seems to be a repeat question, and maybe they're not getting our answers in the chat, but there was a couple questions about tutoring at Guelph. So just let everyone know that you can search for tutors. They're usually undergrad or graduate students at Guelph. If you go to the university homepage and type in tag, like the game, TAG, and they'll take you to a page where you can actually search for tutors. It's not something you would want to do until the start of the semester, but as an extra resource, that is there. And there's also a couple questions about early move-in and if there will be any help with move-in if there's, say, due to limited mobility. So yes, there are student volunteers who do help with move-in. With the earlier move-in, there won't be as many volunteers, but they will be there. But what I would suggest to anyone who requires any assistance with moving in physically into the residence, if you email housing@uofg.ca to give them a heads up, they'll make sure someone's there to help you out.
Yeah, and actually one of the folks in housing who helps to coordinate that stuff used to work in our area, so has a good feel for the types of ways that people sometimes need help. So yeah, if you email housing@uofg.ca and just let them know if you need help, let them know what you need and they will be on it. I know another thing that I'll mention, since we're talking about housing, I know that there's a number of people who will be living off campus this year, and I think some people have felt really apprehensive about living off campus this year. And so maybe it's just worth mentioning that there are a number of programs and services and student groups and all kinds of things to help support students who live off campus in their first year. So you won't be alone. There's a really great student club called OCUS, which stands for Off-Campus University Students. And they run programming during orientation week, just like the residences do. The Student Experience Office has some programs as well that sort of support students throughout their first year, so that sort of really with helping it to guide you with like, how do I find how to meet people who have similar interests to me? They can help you with that. Or hey, something didn't really quite go the way I was expecting. They can help you with that. So know that you won't be the only one. Know that there is support available. And I think the big difference with off-campus students is two things. One, you have a little bit more flexibility to sleep in your own bed and cook your own food and sort of have some of the comforts of home that if you're living further from home, you're living in residence, sometimes you have to try and carve out your feeling of home here. So you have that advantage of being home on a regular basis, but you can also get the experience of being on campus. You just have to. People aren't going to wander past your bedroom. This is the big difference. Is when you live in residence, someone's going to wander by your bedroom and say like, hey, we see you're hanging out here and you've been here all week. Like, come on out and join us. Whereas nobody's going to come to your home if you're living in Milton to say like, hey, come on out. You might occasionally get an email or something saying, hey, there's somebody just wanting to check in with you. But you have to often be a little bit more purposeful about reaching out. As long as you're purposeful, you can absolutely have a strong sense of community. I have lots of friends who lived off campus throughout their whole undergrad, including their first year, who say like, they would not. That was the best way for them. That's what was most comfortable for them. So it can be a really awesome experience if that's what you make it.
Barry, another question around housing. It sounds like there's some conflicting information out there about whether early move-in is September 1st or August 31st. Do we know what the actual date is?
The September 1st is the first day of Start Accessible. Students can move into residence, I believe, on the 31st, and more information will be sent later in the summer.
Thank you.
Yeah, majority of students will move in the morning of September 1st, but we can arrange for the 31st.
That's why there's conflicting information, is because there's kind of two answers. Lots of people move in the morning of the 1st, but you know, if you need to move in earlier, let us know. We can connect you with housing about that.
And I would stress to everyone listening, please make sure you're checking your SAS or your UofG email account, not maybe your Gmail or anything. We will only be contacting you with your UofG email account, and you will be getting regular emails about Start Accessible and transition programs, who your advisor is, all that throughout the summer. So please make sure you're checking that account regularly.
Yeah, and just sometimes people wonder about why is that. If you're checking your UofG email account, we kind of have a way of verifying that you are who you say you are. So there's less risk of us accidentally disclosing confidential information about your disability or your academics or something else. Whereas if it's a Gmail account, anybody can create any Gmail account with any name. And so it's harder for us to validate that that's legitimate. So the university just has a policy where they've asked us to only correspond with students using their Guelph email addresses. I feel like there's something else I was going to say about email. You'll have to check into the next session to find out what it was, because clearly I'm not remembering. Tuition deposits. Can I maybe
there are a
just
couple more
mention...
questions. Yeah, one more quick thing, and then there's a couple more questions about early move-in. You'll get contacted throughout the summer about Start Accessible and early move-in, and if you need to let anyone know by the 31st, we'll let you know. But as of now, what happens is we will send a list of all of Start Accessible participants to residents, so they will know if you're arriving early. And they generally will give you a kind of a window when you can move in. They don't want you moving at like 1 o'clock in the morning. If you are doing that, we have to get that prearranged. But normally, if it's during working hours, they'll have your list and your name and your keys ready to go.
Maybe I'll just mention one other thing. In case people are away for part of the summer, make sure that you're planning for this. So course selection, as you know, has already started. Based on people choosing courses, that's how they know to send you to a bill for tuition and fees, which you can log into Web Advisor to see your bill once it's available. It's not available yet. You will have to pay a tuition deposit. It's a non-refundable deposit. That's essentially what says, yes, I'm actually committed. I am actually coming this fall. I'm not going to quote the specific date to you because I know I will get it wrong, and it is in the registration guide for new students. So please look at the registration guide, make sure that you pay it. It's in early August, is that tuition deposit. If you don't pay the tuition deposit by the deadline, they're going to deregister you from your courses, and it happens every year because they assume you didn't pay your deposit, you're not coming, and we want to open up that space for other people who are going to be here and who want to get into those classes. So please make sure you remember to pay your tuition deposit in early August, and look at the registration guide for details about that. All right. Well, still answering questions out there, or should we wrap?
Yeah, I think we're all caught up here. I'll give it a minute, but I will stress, if you have a question that you think of later or didn't feel comfortable asking in Teams live event, please email sas@uofg.ca, and we'll be happy to get back to you.
Yep.
Okay, Barry, I don't see any more questions coming in, so I think we can wrap up.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for those of you. It looks like people hung out for the whole time, which is awesome. There are more sessions throughout the summer, so I hope you continue to check in. And at some point, we're actually going to meet in real person, which will be pretty awesome. In the meantime, have a great afternoon.
Okay, you are not live anymore.
Awesome. How did that go from your perspective?
Yeah, good. Lots of questions.
It was fast and furious. Thank you, Malcolm. I know you took the lion's share.